So, hello everyone, and first of all, I would like to thank the Margarita von Britano Center and their team for accepting me as a visiting scholar. It is a privilege to be here and also to be part of this event. So in these few minutes, I would like to briefly tackle the background and the theoretical framework of the current research that I am conducting, and that has a link with the delegitimization of decolonial studies. You will see, even if it doesn't seem like that at the beginning. So my research builds on the work carried out through the Horizon Project UNICEF, in which I participate as part of the Complutense University of Madrid team. The work package of research that, coordinated by our university, focused on analyzing institutional responses to gender-based violence within universities, and we selected 16 case studies, including equality plans, protocols against sexual harassment, and also health deaths across different universities in Europe. And among the many findings, because there are plenty of findings, very interesting, but one of the most striking for me was that in only one of the institutional responses analyzed were men identified as having any responsibility in addressing gender-based violence within academia. In other words, in the vast majority of cases, hegemonic masculinity and men were not problematized. So starting from this observation, I am now in the very early stages of a research project that seeks to explore the need to problematize masculinity in relation to the persistent inequalities within academia. And my focus is on how values associated with masculinity are privileged within the academic environment, especially in the context of neoliberalization of universities. My theoretical framework draws on the work of scholars such as Jeff Erm, who makes a similar observation by pointing out, and I quote him, "Men in academia remain unproblematized. Indeed, many debates and writings on gender equality in academia are marked by a strange silence on men, masculinities, and male majorities, especially at senior and leadership positions." So that's the reason why in recent years a number of researchers have begun to focus more and more attention on the role of men and masculinities within the university. And in this regard, I would like to highlight the work of colleagues from Mexico who published the book Masculinities at Universities in Times of Feminist Challenge, coordinated by Rubén Hernández and Beno de Keizer. The book reflects on the role of men in academia following the powerful feminist mobilizations before the COVID-19 pandemic, and these mobilizations that gained significant traction in universities such as UNAM in Ciudad de Mexico, and that opened the door to a broader reflection on the need for a transformation of masculinities and the active engagement of men in promoting structural change. And in this regard, academic literature increasingly points to a shift in the focus of equality politics, including those implementing in universities, from individualized women-centered measures, the so-called fixed women approach, to strategies that adopt an institutional dimension and ultimately promote structural change. And we have to say that while many universities are implementing structural change policies, such as gender equality plans, one of the major gaps preventing genuine transformation have to do with the lack of explicit engagement with the issue of masculinities, as I have mentioned with the results of the UNICEF project. So there is a lack of critical engagement with the role of men and masculinities in sustaining gender hierarchies and inequality in universities. And with all this in mind, and also the work about intersectionality of Kimberly Creusot and the work of Raewyn Connell on hegemonic masculinity, my aim during this research stay here in Berlin and beyond is keep tackling the lack of problematization of masculinity, with particular focus on epistemic authority, connecting the issue of masculinity with Miranda Fricker's work on epistemic injustice, while also incorporating Mary Ann Sigard's concept of the authority gap. On the one hand, I wish to explore how epistemic recognition and authority are unequally distributed due to epistemic injustice by asking questions such as how do masculinized academic norms marginalize alternative subjects, epistemologies, and practice? How Western middle-class white male And hegemonic masculinity continue to be seen as the standard of authority within academia, and how women and marginalized groups and dissident voices are marginalized within academia, and how alternative perspectives such as feminist, queer, or decolonial studies are delegitimized systematically, we can say. And on the other hand, I also intend to explore the role of informal networks that continue to reproduce inequality, because within organizational culture at university, men often benefit from homosocial capital, that is intragroup relations that can become informal social networks, often referred in the literature as all-boys networks, that allow them to have easier access to some resources that are relevant for academic careers, such as access to research projects, collaboration, or support in obtaining leadership positions. It is crucial to highlight that androcentrism persists in the entire organizational culture of universities, reinforced through the greater recognition afforded to male voices of authority and the systematic under-recognition of women and marginalized groups. One example of this is the gender citation gap, which reveals that men are more likely to cite the work of other men and less likely to read and cite also texts written by women. As Sarah Ahmed highlights, and I quote Sarah Ahmed, citation is another form of academic relationship. White men reproduce themselves through academic citation. White men cite other white men. It is what they have always done, what they will do, what they teach each other to do. So the citation gap related to the informal networks is just one example of male corporativism that helps reproduce hegemonic masculine logics, enable some to advance, while women remain in epistemic margins. The devaluation and invisibility of women scientific contributions sustain a knowledge power regime rooted in androcentrism and male privilege. So I still have to refine the theoretical framework further before I can begin with interviews with stakeholders within the university, and I am particularly interested in the experiences of researchers, both women and men related to non-hegemonic masculinities, working in the field of gender studies in order to explore instances of epistemic injustice, discomfort, and invisibility within the academic community. So thank you very much for your attention.